So a warm welcome, at least I hope we're warming up in here today, to our panel on longevity and the future of health. And over the next half hour, yes, Sarah, I heard that, we're going to give you a flavour of the latest medical innovations and research and how proactive approaches to ageing can help us to really thrive as we age. My name is Lucy Pattullo. I pivoted to a career in the wellness arena following a pretty shocking breast cancer diagnosis, age 47, and coming from a background as a solicitor, working in an investment bank. I became a Pilates teacher, I studied nutrition, and now I work with midlife women and women who've had cancer to help them live well. So, as Sarah said, we know that our life expectancy is increasing, but the incidence of disease and so-called inflammaging is also on the rise. But the tide is just beginning to turn to focus on increasing our health span alongside our lifespan, and doing that in a much more personalised way. So if mainstream medicine really focuses on treatment and reacting to issues as they arise, what our panel are going to share with you today is the power of turning our attention to prevention and sharing why it's never too early or too late to start focusing on our longevity. So on my left is Dr. Paul Jenkins, consultant endocrinologist and chairman and medical director of Echelon Health, who are the global leading provider of high-quality preventative health assessments using a range of the most advanced medical imaging to help us determine the earliest signs of diseases which can cause us to depart this world before our time. Next to Paul is Lucinda Miller. Lucinda's a naturopath and functional medicine practitioner, and she's the clinical lead of Nature Doc, which specialises in family nutrition, including child and young person's mental health and neurodiversity. And Lucinda is the best-selling author of no less than 3 family cookbooks, and she's also a popular podcast guest. You may have heard her speaking. And on the far left is Max Berry, who is the founder of the Fit Partnership, which is an incredible longevity and fitness hub in Esher. It's dedicated to transforming the world of health and wellness with really personalized, science-backed fitness and recovery modalities. And he combines a team of the latest technology and machinery and all sorts of gadgets with a team of leading holistic practitioners. So you can go there for anything from cryotherapy to psychotherapy, from red light saunas, right through to, of course, Pilates. So, without further ado, Paul, could you share a little bit about why do we need to invest our time and money in our longevity? And what are the sort of issues that clients are coming to you with?
Well, thank you very much. I think, the issue is, as we've already heard, is about health span. That's it. We're all, I am, and many in the audience are at the age where one has reached a certain level of material comfort, job security, various stages of the children leaving, and it's time to turn perhaps attention to yourself now and to prepare yourself for the next 20, 30 years. When I started in medicine some 30 years ago, once one had retired, it was really a case of get your slippers on, sit in the armchair, and the life expectancy was pretty low. Yeah? Nowadays, it's a whole new time in our lives, and we've got to prepare ourselves for that and for the adventures ahead of us, and to try and stave off the diseases which otherwise we know can sadly affect us and cause devastating illness and early death.
Yes, absolutely. So in terms of the testing that somewhere like Echelon could offer, what are the sort of diseases that you would be screening for?
Well, I think the key is, and one of the most exciting things from medicine, is the ability now to do high-quality, effective screening to detect diseases. And that's really come through the development of the scanners, the 2 types of scanners, the CT scanning and the MRI scanning. And no one scanner will do everything. That's a key point to determine. So you need to use the right scanner for the disease you're looking at. And so the most common disease that is going to affect us is cardiovascular disease. You may, in this audience may not know, but heart attacks are the most common cause of death in women, far more than breast cancer. And whereas it used to be thought that it's just a man's disease. So using proper scanning, you can detect or see inside your own individual arteries with a resolution of 0.3 of a millimetre. You can see the very earliest stages of any flaring up. And if it's there, you've got objective data. Yes, you've got heart disease, or you don't. And now you can act aggressive primary prevention to stop it from developing.
And I suppose the argument is that these diseases don't happen overnight. They're sort of, a sort of slow ripple that we want to spot before it becomes the crashing wave. And I guess, Lucinda, that leads me to you. You're working with families perhaps at a younger age, focusing on nutrition and integrative or holistic health through the ages and life stages. So the sorts of problems that you're seeing now, could you tell us a little bit about those, and also what are the sort of key lifestyle interventions that you would be recommending at that sort of ripple stage?
So yes, I think, very much what today is about is this sandwich generation. And I think, many of us are that jammy, sweet spot in the middle of those two pieces of bread, where you've got these young kids who should, in theory, be at school, be at university, working or whatever, and they're often not. So we've got these kids who have significant mental health challenges, finding that they can't find a job, mental health crushes, etc. You've also then got spouses who may be going through health problems themselves, and then you've got your parents who, again, you're looking after. And so that leaves very little time for you, but actually prioritising yourself can make a massive difference. So I always say, put your oxygen mask on first. And that can be, to begin with, something simple like nourishing your family and learning to cook again. Because actually cooking, we're often told these days we don't have time. It's much easier to rip open a packet, that plastic fantastic food. But actually cooking is a process that actually is quite calming and can be very helpful, just because I think so many families are not sitting around the table together anymore. And so nourishing food, you can have autonomy over what you feed your family, you feed yourself if you're cooking from scratch. So, and I think it's very hard these days because everyone in the room is knowledgeable on nutrition. But, you're scrolling through your Instagram feed, and one moment someone's telling you to be carnivore and the next you're told to be vegan. And where do you go? So you go, I give up, just eat my packet of crisps instead. And so, I think it's very hard, but I hope today will give you that why, that motivation to maybe just go and buy some ingredients, cook something yummy this evening for your family, and that will be really helpful for them.
Perfect. So, Max, you and I have talked before, and this was quite a surprise to me, that only 20% of how we go about aging is down to our genetics or our DNA. And I know you often tell your clients that means that there's 80% that they have control over. And that's where the Fit Partnership comes in, I guess, to help them enhance their longevity. And I imagine looking around, there's lots more men this year, which is great. But I also imagine I'm fairly representative, and perhaps we'll throw my husband into the two of us. He's just retired. I'm a sort of midlife menopausal woman. I think I'm quite well educated. I'm trying to exercise and eat well for my health. But how could somewhere like the Fit Partnership really support me and enhance what I'm doing?
Well, thank you, Lucy. And hello, everyone. The idea at the Fit Partnership is we start with a why. Why is someone coming is the first question we ask when they come through the door. The reason why is because many people just don't know. They think they've got a load of barriers in place. They think they've got all of these other things going on. But when it comes down to it, the why is so important because that dictates everything they do with their programming. So we start with the why. We put people in an environment that they want to be in. They want to have fun. They want to meet like-minded people with similar goals. And that creates an environment that allows for success. As we did yesterday, we did a lot of testing. We do a lot of testing. We make sure it's data-driven, scientific-backed. But in reality, the most important thing we do is find a way using science, technology to create habits and work with people's daily lives rather than forcing them to do 2 to 3 hours a day of exercise, which they're just not going to do.
Absolutely, and I don't mind sharing that I went to have a bone scan yesterday because I've had DEXA bone density scans through my mainstream health, but I wanted to learn about the quality of my bone, not just its density. So we were able to do a bone scan, get some immediate results, and talk about how I could use more sort of strength loading to load into the bones and build a bit more muscle. And I can say that, going to the Fit Partnership is like going to a spa. There were plenty of women lifting probably heavier weights than I would be daring to pick up, but looking very impressive. And, so it was very personalized discussion. But I suppose, all of this costs money, and it is an investment. We're going to be talking about investment of our financial assets a bit later on today. But Paul, if we need to focus on our longevity, what is the justification around making that an investment? And when would you encourage us to start engaging in that sort of preventative health? Like, when should people come and book a scan with you?
Well, I think we're probably the first stage in effective, promoting and enhancing your health span. Yes, and the analogy, I guess, is you wouldn't get a top interior designer in to do your house if you had a major crack in your basement. You've got to get yourself sorted first, and having a detailed, personalised health assessment gives you that knowledge and that power to then fix anything that needs fixing. So our average clients are probably in the early mid-50s, yes. And increasingly this year we've seen 50% are women. So whereas when we started it was about 20%, and more it's couples coming. And I like to think, and I will with my wife, it's probably the most romantic present you can buy someone. It sounds it, but it shows it's a commitment. It shows I want to spend my next 30 years with you. I want to make sure we're both fit enough to do it. And the key is because so many diseases are preventable if you catch it early. My mother sadly passed in her early 70s from colorectal cancer. And I know that's got a period of 10, 15 years where it could have been detected if she'd had a scan, seen a polyp, been removed. Early lung cancer we see now, lung cancer in non-smoking women is becoming younger and younger for reasons we just don't understand. But with a proper CT scan, you can see tumours as small as 3 millimetres. Your 5-year survival after that is around 90%. If you wait for symptoms, it's months. If you wait for a chest X-ray, which the government sometimes says you should have if you go to the cinema, you see if you're coughing, have an X-ray. Well, you're about 10% survival. So the earlier you detect things, the higher your chance of cure. And we all know prevention is better than cure.
Goodness, I know. I'm always shocked at people who say that they've lived with symptoms or issues or something that wasn't quite right, but they were too scared or frightened, perhaps, to get it looked into. Do you have that with people?
We do, but much less than we started. When I started, it was very British, head in the sand. What will be, will be. We'll just take it on the chin and deal with it. And now people know that there's these powerful and accurate tests, and that you can do something about it. So, more and more people say, well, why should I just wait? I want to take charge of my destiny, my health, and get this all clear. And I think once you have a all clear from us, then you get the interior decorators in. And then Lucinda Max can add to your quality and your enhancement of life.
So, Lucinda, I'm not quite sure that you're the interior decorator, but you're certainly here to help us foster positive life habits earlier on. What would you say are the key areas that we should prioritise?
I think the first thing that goes by the wayside when we're under a huge amount of stress is our sleep. And it's the one thing that can make such an enormous difference to not just the following day, but your future health. And to gain good habits and good quality sleep, deep sleep, refreshing sleep, makes the most enormous difference to your food choices the next day, your motivation to do exercise, your ability to cope. But we all know that when our children or our parents are sick, we've got a lot on our mind. That's where our brains go racing at night. So it is very difficult, but there are things that you can do. So whether it's taking away those screens an hour and a half before bed, which I know it's so easy to doom scroll, when you're sort of super stressed. Maybe it's having a lovely Epsom salt bath, lots of lovely magnesium helps to settle those nerves. Whether it's, taking a couple of supplements just to help, because sometimes, the best breathing techniques and meditation, when your brain is that distracted, it's pretty hard. So I love things like ashwagandha and theanine. They're very, very calming, and they help to take down that high cortisol state. Saffron's, again, very good for that high adrenaline cortisol state. So if you wake up at 4 a.m. with your heart pounding, saffron can be a really good friend to you. So I would say that would be my highest priority, is to work on your sleep, because if you work on your sleep, then you'll be working on that high cortisol state, which will help you cope better during the day.
Dare I just quickly ask you, how many hours of sleep should we be getting? And I am not good at this. I can sleep, but I just don't go to bed early enough.
Everyone's different, and it really depends on the quality of the sleep rather than the length of the sleep. I think, some people thrive really well on 6.5 hours. Others need 8.5 to 9. So I think if your family are going through a crisis, then I think it's very important to prioritise that sleep and to allow yourself to have more sleep. So, as I said, often it's that mid of the night waking, and then actually if you have to get up at 6:30, it can be pretty tough on the system. Whereas if you actually allow yourself to sleep until, say, 8, even if you can actually have that extra bit of deep sleep, or to allow yourself to have a nap during the day, that's okay too. So everyone's different. I have been wearing an Aura ring for the last 3 years, which I've found phenomenally helpful at understanding my sleep patterns and what helps and what hinders. And, alcohol completely kills my sleep, so I've learned that now. And I think that's a valuable lesson, but other people, it's a late night meal. Other people, it's late evening exercise is just too much for their system. So we all learn these things. So it's good to track these things, and everyone's got their way of doing that.
Perfect. So Max, what would you say in terms of the sort of maybe more the fitness or the recovery interventions? What should midlifers be focusing on?
Well, I want to start by saying that the Aura ring is not something I wear. We're definitely against each other here.
Ooh,
I'm on the Whoop side. But the idea is ultimately, actually, I would say about 90% of our members ultimately have an Aura ring or a Whoop. One way or another, I hear people say, I'm obsessed, so I've had to take it off. And the reality is, obsessing over sleep is actually probably a pretty good thing to do. You should be obsessed with your health. And, fundamentally, if you get those basics into place, using some tracking metrics, it is a really good thing to do. So if I would recommend anything for everyone to, take away from this, is find some way of tracking your health and start with your sleep. So, yes, although I don't wear an Aura ring, it is actually a really, really good thing to purchase. I have no idea what question you asked, though.
Oh, I was just saying, what should we prioritise? Is it, should we be doing yoga? Should we be doing strength training? Should we be doing cardiovascular?
When you come to the Fit Partnership, it is ultimately like a kid in a candy store. You have a wide range of facilities, everything you can imagine within one place, but the idea is ultimately there is too much there. So what we advise members to do is sit down, discuss their health goals, and then prioritize based on their timings, their requirements, and what they want to do long term, what exactly they should spend every single minute they have within the facility. And yes, our Pilates classes are full pretty much every day, but there is a basis of actually combining that with some good strength training regimes, all the way through to that recovery and rejuvenation side. The big focus for us, and I think ultimately if you're going to take something away, is focus on that recovery, rejuvenation, get in an ice bath, get in a cryotherapy chamber, get in something that is going to make you feel incredible for the day. That is the idea for me. If I exercise and feel better, then I'm going to eat better, I'm going to sleep better.
Perfect. Now, Paul, as the clinician on the sofa, can you help us? How do we separate science and scam? My husband would say that I am the first one to be looking at Instagram and like, look at this. But I do always try and find the research paper that goes with it to see whether it's something that I should encourage him to spend our money on.
Well, it's a very valid question, and as you say, there is an awful lot of quasi-science out there. And people can take a little kernel of science and spin it into a very compelling story. I think you just have to do your own research and see if there's multiple sources promoting a particular treatment, and do your own, see if there's any scientific papers supporting that. And with a good internet search, you can sift through the wheat from the chaff pretty easily.
And presumably, if you come somewhere like you, Max, at the Fit Partnership, you've done that work so that when you're recommending things to clients, you can say, we know that we've looked into why this is helpful for you.
We do an awful lot of testing, but actually, the more recently, we've done 7 years of this in 2 facilities, and the idea is, in reality, we've actually started going a little bit away from that testing initially and just getting those habits in place, and we ask people to just throw themselves in and see how their body feels, see how their energy is, work out what is right for them, and then fine-tune with the testing and the other bits. Ultimately, we need to start with the foundations first. But absolutely, knowing and testing is a really good thing, especially for someone like myself, very data-driven. So just find what motivates you.
Perfect. And then we couldn't possibly have a panel on longevity without talking about our gut microbiome and how it is our second brain. So, Lucinda, we've talked about nourishing our bodies with sleep, with exercise, working out what's going on. Can nutrition really support our brain power and our mental health and, everything that we do?
Well, it's something I'm super passionate about and talk about every single day, is talking about nourishing our brains for the future, because cognitive decline is such a big worry for so many people. And I think that first glimmer of it, possibly through perimenopause and menopause, where the brain fog kicks in, is frightening. I had a moment after my first episode of COVID where I lost complete word retrieval.
Goodness.
And I was sitting there thinking, I just don't know what to say. It was awful. It was awful. The words would not come out. So having had that small fright, I'm doing everything I can for my future health. My uncle died of dementia, so it's something, again, which is something very big for me. So there are 2 things, there are 2 aspects to this. First of all, your gut microbiome is this wonderful ecosystem within your belly with billions of different bacteria and different microorganisms. And one of the roles is to build something called neurotransmitters. And neurotransmitters are things like serotonin, which keep you happy and sleep and poop. But things like acetylcholine, which help with learning and memory and focus and self-regulation and emotional regulation. And GABA, which keeps us cool, calm and relaxed. So all of these things are vital. Also, the gut microbiome helps to reduce something called inflammation. And inflammation can affect cardiovascular health, aches and pains, but also our mental acuity. So that, again, is vital. So it's not about being complicated, and you don't need to drink kombucha every day. It's all about having things like lots of different fruits and vegetables, so different coloured berries, different herbs and spices, fruit, vegetables, etc., is really important. And then, yes, if you can tolerate dairy, lots of kefir and yogurts and things like that are great too. And again, this all boils down to eating ingredients rather than buying things that are out of a plastic fantastic package. So
returning to real food.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think the other big thing is omega-3 fatty acids, which do nourish the gut microbiome and as well as the brain. And this is where I guess most of the research lies in terms of brain health, is these omega-3s, which come from eating salmon and sardines and anchovies and so forth. And there's a most phenomenal guy. He's called Professor Michael Crawford, and he's celebrating his 95th birthday this year. He's a researcher at Imperial, and his whole life work has been on omega-3. And we all want to be more Michael, because I'd like to be working at 95 too.
Wow. Well, that's a great thought to end on. We really are in an age of medicine evolving. And thank you, panelists, for enlightening us as to why we need to manage our health in the same way that we might think about managing our financial assets. because it's clear that if we don't make time for our wellness, we're going to have to make time for our illness. But I think what was really encouraging was hearing from each of you in terms of how much we can do to influence how we age. Training now for our twilight years by coming to see someone like Max, arming ourselves with the right information by doing some assessments through someone like Echelon Health, and then maybe a combination of harnessing those latest modalities and returning to some of the basics, some of the pillars that Lucinda talked about in terms of moving, eating well, limiting toxins, paying attention to our emotional and mental well-being, and of course our sleep. And as Seneca said, as it is with a play, so it is in life. What matters is not how long the acting lasts, but how good it was. And on that assessment, I hope you've enjoyed our last half an hour together. Thank you.